Most language learners make the same mistakes for years and feel stuck. I know exactly what that's like, but I found making some simple shifts in how I approach learning and some easy habits laid the foundation that finally led to me making real progress. So this video is a letter to a younger me and what I wish I'd known. So if you're in a similar situation, then it can help you get unstuck too. Now, I know you're frustrated with slow progress or even what can feel like no progress, but you can actually simplify how you think about learning a language to get the clarity you need to move forward. So for example, I had no interest in learning a language in school. It was only when I started traveling to China to do Kung Fu did I think that learning Mandarin would help me connect with people there. So I did a couple of beginners courses, tried an app here or there, and jumped around between different resources. But ultimately, I got nowhere for a very long time. The thing is, my motivation would go up and down, and I would often take months off at a time before dabbling in the next thing. But eventually, I managed to do something which not only helped me to finally make progress, looking back, it was probably the thing that turned me into a language learner. So I decided that instead of trying the next app or feeling like I was missing out if I didn't try some new method that someone mentioned in a video, I simplified it. And I just said, if I'm not consistent, I'm going to be stuck in this beginner's no man's land forever. So to build the consistency I needed, my idea was this: to do at least 15 minutes of reading a graded reader every day. That was all. But that was non-negotiable. Here's the thing though. Pretty soon, I noticed that easy habit had effects elsewhere in my life too. So I would then start to listen to the audiobook for whatever I was reading as I drove to work or maybe when I walked my dog. I then went on to book lessons with a tutor online, and I slowly gathered momentum. And over time, my activities and habits grew until I ultimately became the kind of person who can successfully learn a language. It turns out that this idea of creating a simple, daily, achievable habit is what writer Charles Duhigg calls a keystone habit from his book, The Power of Habit. Had I known that at the time, I probably could have saved myself a lot of frustration. The idea is to create a simple task that you can do each day that will create a positive chain reaction for the rest of your language learning. You don't have to worry about doing a ton of activities, but you do have to make sure you stick with whatever habit you choose and build that consistency. If you see evidence that you're successful by completing one task, then you're spurred on to go and make changes elsewhere too. It's kind of like when someone decides to start going to the gym. They inevitably make other positive decisions about their lifestyle that result in them getting healthier, like eating fewer biscuits or maybe drinking a bit less. If you think the task you have to do today is get fluent, well, that's a pretty big ask. But if your daily habit was something like always listening to a particular podcast in your target language, or maybe watching a short YouTube video and then reading the transcript for it, well, those don't sound quite as hard to get started. Whatever you pick, make it something that you think you can do over the long term and ideally enjoy. Or if not, find at least satisfying in some way, and then see what changes that makes in other areas of your life. But before you get carried away with adding too many things, focus on maintaining that keystone habit first and make that non-negotiable. Ultimately, fluency isn't about talent. It's about building the right habits. So that keystone habit will build your consistency, but after that, there's something else that you need so you don't get stuck further down the line. Have you ever thought that learning a language feels harder than it should? I certainly have in the past. And in one of those periods before I started that reading habit, it seemed that everybody on YouTube was talking about the flashcard platform Anki. So loads of creators were recommending it as the best, most effective way to build up your vocabulary in the language you're learning. So I thought, seeing as they were more experienced than me at the time, I would follow their advice. A huge part of learning a language is just about learning enough words, right? So it sort of makes sense. So I started making my own flashcards as well as adding other people's pre-made Anki decks, and I did my best to try and get through them every day. But the problem was this. Like everyone, I'd slowly add more and more cards, which was fine until I missed a day or two, which then turned into a week. And quickly I'd find myself with a mountain of reviews to do that would become difficult to keep on top of if I wasn't constantly on it. On top of that, personally, I never enjoyed using Anki. I forced myself to do it because that's what I thought you had to do, but inevitably, after opening Anki and seeing a huge amount of cards that I had to get through one day, it just killed my motivation, and so I stopped. And I felt like I was the reason behind my lack of success. But that's not the whole story. The truth is this. On the one hand, yes, I was in part to blame. I had chosen to use flashcards and I wasn't showing up and making that happen. But on the other hand, I was trying a method that just wasn't suited to me and my habits at the time. So instead of persevering with it and working out something better, which is, by the way, what successful learning looks like, I gave up. Again, I didn't keep trying different things to find something that felt like a better fit for my personality. So if you're struggling with learning a language, don't feel like you have to follow the routine of someone online if you don't feel like you would enjoy it. You can only do something you hate for so long. The key lesson to take away here is this. You are in charge. It's not a failure to try something else. In fact, you're getting more experience and learning about what works for you, making you more successful in the long run. So you're not getting it wrong if you're not following someone's advice to the letter. And if there's something that you haven't tried but appeals to you, definitely give it a go. I found journaling to be a complete game changer for me, but maybe you want the certainty of understanding grammar rules in more depth, or even if you want to speak from day one and socializing motivates you to keep going, then go for it. Life is too short to worry about what people on the internet think at the end of the day. So take charge of your own learning and find out what works for you. Now, if you struggled with learning a language before, this next point I believe is essential in order to create your own path to fluency. You see, when I first started watching YouTube videos about language learning, sometimes it would be a bit depressing. People were sharing different routines and activities, and I thought sometimes there'd be no way that I'd be able to stick with them. We've all seen videos titled, "I learned whatever language in 30 days using some hardcore method." At the time, I didn't really have a point of reference, and I thought that's what successful language learning looked like. Successful learning looked hardcore, full immersion. But the truth is that has very little to do with really learning a language to a decent level. YouTube is a very competitive platform, and people are often just trying to get clicks. A video saying, "I have a comfortable language learning routine that seems to be working for me," just isn't clickable for the majority of people compared to, "I learned Klingon in 30 days. I really don't know where that voice came from. Anyway, but as I learned more about how habits are built and how we can learn languages through exposure, I finally learned the power of easy. Now, I'm not talking about easy in terms of tapping away on a language app for 5 minutes once a week. That's not going to get you that far, but something like doing a lot of listening to your target language at a level you can mostly understand, well, that's pretty easy. And importantly, it will help to build up your habits and hear the sounds of the language and slowly grow your vocabulary over time too. So yes, an easy activity like that will teach you the language over time, but that's not enough. You see, when I was failing to learn a language, my focus was on exactly that, trying to learn the language, but yet I was still missing something. I didn't understand the mindset successful learners have, or how you can build habits that you can actually stick with. And so if you don't build these, the risk is that you'll just run out of steam after a while. But here's where the power of easy comes in. As you continue to do the listening I mentioned, or maybe you want to watch YouTube or read, whatever interests you, don't stress about whether you're improving fast enough, because just showing up repeatedly will not only build your language skills, but importantly, build your habits and reinforce your identity as a language learner. And that is the essential foundation you need for success. Your choices and habits will then be centered around who you are, which is a successful language learner. And what once seemed hard will start to appear easy as you get more experience too. But if you force it too much, or you don't build it up slowly, the risk is burning out and spending more time stuck before you eventually feel ready to try again. So don't worry about people trying to get clicks online with videos showing some fancy routine. Successful learning focuses on easy activities to get those small wins. And over time, those wins will compound and grow your capacity to do harder activities later. So we not only want to improve our language skills, but also build the habits and mindset to become a successful language learner, which is exactly what I'll show you in this next video. Thanks for watching.